We'll go now to Mr. Hughes and Ms. Ghose.
The Electoral Reform Society campaigns for a better democracy in the UK. We believe that every voice should be heard, every vote valued, and votes fairly translated into parliamentary seats. The ERS's preferred system is a proportional system with a constituency link that allows voters to vote preferentially for candidates from parties or independents. This system, the single transferable vote form of PR, is used in Scottish municipal elections as well as in Northern Ireland and in Ireland, and it's a candidate-centred system that puts maximum choice in the hands of the voter rather than the party. Why do we like it? Because candidates reach out to far more voters and they visit neighbourhoods that they never bothered with under first past the post. They have a different kind of a conversation, often more positive. After all, they're saying, you might not want to give me your first preference. How about giving me your second or your third preference? It's a different kind of conversation. It's a more positive conversation. There's more competition. Uncontested seats are a thing of the past at the Scottish municipal level. There are no no-go areas. Competing everywhere is worthwhile, and people are far more likely to have a representative that they voted for and a choice of representative to visit. And there's some evidence of some specialisation when it comes to casework. After all, when there's a team of MPs or representatives voting locally, you can begin to have some sharing of the casework load. Translated to federal level, that approach sees a team of local MPs from a range of parties, very much like in Ireland, where it's used for the lower house, and you have 3 to 5 local MPs. And interestingly, Ireland has those multi-member constituencies elected by STV, an extremely local focus by candidates, which is interesting that that's something that they have under a proportional constituency system.
Thank you, Katie. I just wanted to share some of the New Zealand experience from the New Zealand perspective from experience that I had as both a constituency and a list MP in New Zealand under a proportional system. And I think New Zealand is an interesting case study because to me it's a unique clash of unfairness, some anger amongst the voters, and also a bit of luck that always helps in politics. Basically, the New Zealand context, I think, is very hard to replicate leading towards proportional representation. There had been 2 general elections in a row where the biggest party in vote share became the opposition rather than the government. There had been a decline in the 2-party system from the voters' perspective, and there were regularly elections where 3rd, 4th parties would receive large shares of the vote. One in particular got 20% of the vote and returned only 2 seats. So that kind of sense of unfairness was really building up quite strongly. And then on the anger side in the 1980s, there was far-reaching economic and social reform that some of you may be familiar with that left virtually no area of life untouched. And that was delivered by parties, both the centre-right and the centre-left, contrary to what their manifesto commitments had been, and with a real sense of a revolution taking place in the country in a policy sense, and with no direct mandate from the public for that. And so that combination of unfairness in results and anger amongst voters about the state of politics, the actions of politicians and the policies that they were following really did lead to that unique scenario, that moment where change was able to be achieved. There was also reported that the Prime Minister misread his notes that said, please don't promise a referendum on proportional representation, and he said out loud, there will be a referendum on proportional representation. So it was hard to row back from that once he had said that. So that's why I say a bit of unfairness, a bit of anger amongst voters, and a bit of luck. The result has been now for over 20 years strong, stable, respected governments that go the full term, contrary to often some of the perceptions about PR. There have been 7 general elections, and all but a couple of years have resulted in minority governments, parties having to work together in order to get things done. These governments have crossed the ideological spectrum. In fact, there have been more centre-right governments than centre-left, although the centre-left has had a good fair share of time in government as well. And in terms of strong leadership, Helen Clark, the Labour Prime Minister, and John Key, the National Prime Minister, the Conservative Prime Minister, are easily 2 of the most successful leaders those parties have had in 40 years from a policy program, popularity and election winning record. There's been a tremendous advancement on diversity of the House of Representatives in New Zealand, far many more women members, ethnic minority members, and of course, crucially, better Indigenous representation for Indigenous New Zealanders, Māori people, than first past the post could ever have achieved. And Kiwis, New Zealanders now like it. After 6 attempts, at the 6th general election under proportional representation, there was a further referendum. That wasn't planned at the time, but it's something that happened. And after this experience 6 times of PR, it was chosen again by New Zealanders to stick with PR, which means that political parties have adapted. It hasn't been easy initially, but they've adapted and they've made it work. And there are no serious anti-proportional representation parties today in New Zealand. It has become very much a mainstream part of democracy that's good for voters and that political parties and politicians have been able to make work.